Pins are such little things, so innocuous and seemingly insignificant. As she sewed the soft fabric, stitch by stitch, treasuring the sensation of the sleek material between her fingers, she dreamt of such finery against her skin. The warmth of a huge banqueting hall lit by vibrant candles, the tall shadows of dancers, their capricious flickering undulation, confident in the promise of such a tender embrace. The warmth of a kind hand, an affectionate gaze, a loving caress. Yet pins are such little things that care not for dreams, and whilst they hold in place two pieces of perfectly aligned fabric, they are worth naught when it comes to clasping together a young girl and her love, requiring an intricacy far beyond the use of pins. The prick of a finger is such a little thing, the momentary sting that dissolves into a dull, aching pulse, a drop of blood that slowly balloons as the pin is painstakingly manoeuvred so as not to mark the creamy buttermilk-hued cloth, and then discarded, as little things so often are. Placing her finger to her lips, she gently brushed her tongue over the pinprick, tasting metal as the blood was washed away. Her finger lingered in a memory of some forgotten event, a moment of pleasure, a fleeting shimmer of a better time, when the hand of another had yet to be associated with hatred, disgust, and the darkness of human compulsion. A time when the touch of her love's skin felt so full of tenderness that she thought she might spin giddily from the world and everything in it. A time before she knew the world and everything in it. Her reverie was broken by the wail of her child, so new, yet created from an act so old. She flinched at the sound, her bond as a mother recoiling against her repugnance for what the baby symbolised. She loved the child in a way she had not thought possible, yet there was something in her eyes that reminded the woman of him. The gleam which cut through the night as he had held her down, his hand against her mouth and nose, the smell of soil and sweat and him. But such a little thing, so helpless and pure, she could not help but love her child, regardless of the memories that flashed through her mind now and then, provoked by her cry, her smile, her eyes. She set aside the dress, like a weeping bloom draped over the chair, petals yet to be sewn into place. Reaching down into the makeshift cot, she scooped up her child and pressed the little one close to her chest, instinctual, yet somehow distant. Closing her eyes, tired from a focus too intense and held too long, she felt the frown melt from her forehead, and the pale, fragmented imagery of past events returned, of her one love and their time together. their stolen moments collated in some miscellany of a journey, a voyage between two people, privileged enough to find each other in a place where a love so all-encompassing is difficult to find, yet lost so easily. Snatched from her in a quick succession of sensory glimpses, a scream, a flash of skin, the taste of charred flesh, the icy cold cut of rusty iron, and that smell of the men who had taken her love and then taken her capacity to love. In reality, those moments had played out over days. From the men who came to take her away, to the weeks of cruel torture which only ever had one outcome, the primal shrieking that sliced through the crack of contorted flames from the pyre, to the one who visited her that same night and left her with only salt for her open wound. Now those elusive shards of time only existed as an amalgam of neurological impulse, phantoms that came to her in these perfunctory flashes, remnants of the haunting hours. Lost in quiet reminiscence, she reflected on how the tiniest sliver of life can outweigh so many years, the heaviness of so much joy, capped with the slightest of torment, yet how it radiates like blood through fabric. A whispered sigh, poignant, agonizing, yet barely audible in the flame-tinged blackness, heralded a deeper dream and one last moment of peace before the morning brought an endless pain. Pins are such little things, so innocuous and seemingly insignificant. A single moment of careless distraction, and anguish returned for merely the briefest moment. Yet that pin grasped by a diminutive hand so curious and ready to cling to all it discovers, a torpor grown from such grief and the yearning to taste the world, to learn, to know life and the world. So much life ahead, so much world to explore. The places and people, the warmth of sunlight and hungry shadows of the forest, the undulation of hills and desperate want of a love so powerful and all-encompassing that it fills life to the brim. So much life, and yet so little, all for the sake of a single pin. As the woman who was once loved and once a mother woke, her eyes adjusted to the sunlight, pouring through diamonds of dust. She pondered the stillness, the quiet, the absence of sensation where there should be life, sound, some form of kinesthesia, yet only the sanguine blush of fabric. As the horror of this scene, the situation and circumstance came together in her mind, as they danced their reality across her very being, she started to utter a noise, a wail, a howl, a guttural moan that originated deeper from within her than any word or scream or breath of passion. The sound beckoned to those nearby. It called to those who needed no excuse, but secretly desired any excuse to justify their own malice, their hatred and corrupt hearts. This siren drew them in with her song, those who had burnt her love at the stake, forced themselves upon a woman paralysed by grief, and stolen from her the innocent promise of love, life, and the world. And now, for the sake of a pin, this broken creature would suffer the same fate as her love. Bereft and longing for death, she would be granted the fate she so desired. The ramshackle trial was swift and momentary in its oversight, yet seemed to last an aeon. Each wrought and twisted word spun out into a patchwork of haphazard thoughts and arbitrary musings, skewed by people rewarded for their refusal to challenge the cruelty of the world and of life. The pin was no longer so innocuous, the fabric not so innocent, the death of a child was not so accidental. These were not the tools and craft of a woman desperately lonely, lost, and mourning a stolen love. A mother torn, a lover bereaved, a seamstress exhausted from the ache of a life hard and calloused and laced with cruelty. These were the devices and trade of a witch, a vile hag, whose ways had led her to damnation and a sadistic death. The woman who had committed this treachery of loving another woman, who lived a life non-compliant to that prescribed to all, and now of murdering a child gifted to her as antidote to her shameful ways. It was with pleasure the sentence was passed, a barbarous glee which hastily swept her from oubliette to mound, her path from life to death expiated with an efficiency only that of human nature can provide. The journey from the village to Widower's Fell was only a walking distance, but the multitude of steps seemed never ending to the woman, who was but a girl. It symbolized the last minutes of a life so short in duration and so long in endurance. It as they lit each shaft of wood beneath her, and the endless suffering of her life's final months united into a single moment of searing pain, something snapped into being. The vague pangs of a life hated and reviled coalesced into an emotion, a feeling she had not experienced before. Her shattered, tattered pieces were sewn together into a new garment, a robe she slipped into for the very first time. She was adorned, and this unfamiliar experience was that of anger, rage, pure fury against those who had stolen, violated, and now killed her. This new emotion tempered her steel. She crystallined every drop of acrimony into each fibre of her being, embroidered a new ferocity into every sinew, and like the Gorgon deflected her gaze inwards, she allowed the flames to make stone of what was once flesh. was left of the pyre was ash, charcoal, and a few wisps of smoke. The villagers were shocked to see a column of petrified rock. Resolute and strong, this monolith stood, defiant in demeanour and stance. The cold grey of fire-cast stone reflected the darkness within. And this cold pillar of rock continued to stand against their hatred of anything other, a testament to the enduring power of those with a different story, a monument for the many who will not be tamed by the fabrications of powerful men to justify and police their own predilections over others. Each night, a strange vibration would emanate from the stone, as if struck into life like a tuning fork. This eerie song would pervade throughout the village, reminding those who were party to such an atrocity of their crimes. This is the song of the Fell Witch, she who was tormented to exhaustion by the monstrosity of others, and when that need for sleep, accidental and without volition, had caused the death of an innocent, she was put to death for the same monstrosity, the self-fulfilling prophecy of people distorted by their own hatred and dogma, the pinnacle of lies they told themselves, the lies they must ensure at any cost come to fruition, the lies justified hard enough and long enough so the lies become truths in the end. And the song of the Fell Witch pierces into the darkness of all, a reminder to the hateful of the corruption eating away within, a battle cry to those crushed by hatred that you are more than you can ever know and deserve a love greater than you can ever imagine, a warning to those who turn away from their pain and need to change, that it is only a moment, a fleeting moment away from the reckoning. The Fell Witch sings and sings again, to pin our truths to our hearts, to pull the fabric from our veiled sight, to adorn each of us within a cloak or a robe, before we too are immortalized by stone.